This is Scott Richmond.
And Arnie Sherman.
You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. Arnie Sherman, good morning to you.
You know, it's good to be in the studio now after our Thanksgiving holiday and a week to recuperate. Are you on a diet yet?
I am on a diet. Continue to be on a diet.
And how's it working out for you?
I've lost 12 pounds.
You look good.
Thanks,
you look
Arnie.
taller.
Taller?
You know? Yeah, so that must be a good result of the diet.
You
look thin and taller and younger and all of those sorts of things.
Well, how did you do with the Thanksgiving Day holiday?
Pretty good. I stayed away from all relatives, which is always good, and I'm planning to do the same thing Christmas week.
Right.
Be in New York City.
I know
for that, and we'll get to see Steve Martin's new show, Meteor Shower, with Amy Schumer, and hopefully got some tickets to see Knicks against Celtics. So I'll be excited about that. And
there's art there.
There's art and culture, and that kind of ties. Obviously in New York, I do the ritual. Everybody, you have a ritual when you go to New York.
What is your ritual, Arnie?
Well, I like to go to the museums, and catch up. Museum of Modern Art is always good. This time I might walk the High Line. I just got a great tip on, the High Line, which is I've never been there. That's the elevated area that goes from about 12th Street to 32nd or 34th Street. And
it's been extended since I've been there.
You can walk above the fray, the traffic, and the holiday shoppers and pop down where you can. I'm going to go to Katz's Deli, my touchstone from a kid on Houston. I'm probably going to go to La Bernardine for seafood. It's got its third Michelin star, and for a 3-star Michelin, they have a price fixed lunch that's in New York at $88 is a good deal.
Yep.
I'm probably going to go to get pizza down in it's meals.
By the way, let me give you a pizza tip.
Oh, pizza tip.
Go to get pizza at Pizza Suprema over on 31st and 8th, right across from the Garden on the 8th Avenue side.
Okay, know where it is.
The best pizza.
Okay, well,
right on the corner. I'm
going
the parking lot.
And enrich myself and taking all the culture in New York.
How about photography? How about
No, I don't think. I'm walking around. Well, as you know, there's people will be skating at Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
Every window will be decorated fantastically.
Yep, absolutely.
It's not just, as you know, maybe our listeners don't know, it's not just, wreaths and lights. It's actually scenes in each of the windows. They're always fantastic. There's lots and lots of crowds looking at each of the scenes, particularly on Fifth Avenue, along the strip where Saks Fifth Avenue does it, and Bergdorf does it, and all the others. So that'll be fun, and that ties in nicely to our topic today, which is Missoula Arts and Arts Missoula.
Yeah, and Tom Benson's going
to be on talking about visual arts, dance, music, film, theater, all the things that are going on in Missoula, and to some extent the economic impact that has.
Huge.
We talk often on the show about business and entrepreneurship, and people get immediately laser focused in on things like high tech or bringing the timber industry back but the arts generate billions of dollars in revenue for the state. It brings millions of people, 11 million people to the state. It employs about 11 or 12% of the entire population of the state. And it's something that we all can participate in. You can't always participate in somebody's business. We don't have a studio on the street in Grand Central Station or at Central Park where people can come by and interact with the radio station, except at special events. But in the arts, you're interacting with all of these businesses and are patrons of these businesses.
Right.
That contribute so much to the fabric of the community and the economic vitality of Montana.
And one could argue that Missoula really is the hot spot for the arts.
Well, I think it is for sure in all of Montana. We had Andy Shurtleff on, and he alluded to that.
And isn't it? I mean, and you could even say the region, because really if it's us. You got theater up in Big Fork, but really a lot of great theater and music and art here. But then Spokane, I don't even think boasts the same amount of art that we have.
They don't have Missoula Children's Theater, which is a world-renowned operation. They don't have a Montana rep. They don't have, they don't have a rep theater, like we have there. They don't have the university the size of ours that has, the school of art and journalism and dancing, and they don't have that kind of
liberal arts school.
We have Ballet Arts Academy. We got the Rocky Mountain Ballet Theater. We have the Missoula Art Museum. For a town this size, I'm not saying we compete with Minneapolis or Seattle.
No,
but for a town of 100,000, in general, we have a tremendous amount of art and culture and film and dance and music, and
we have an overabundance of art.
And when we had Nick Chakotay on him, he's selling over 200,000 tickets a year for music events in town.
You got that. You've got Barb Nealon over at Destination Missoula, who comes from the arts, and she really appreciates it, and that's one of the big draws from a destination and tourism standpoint.
And we actually have a First Friday here, that people show up to.
They do.
Lots of towns have these things, but they kind of peter out. And they're hot for a while, or they're hot if this around a holiday. But our First Fridays, pretty much on every Friday of the month, the 12 of them a year, are very well attended, and people turn out for all of the and it draws them to the downtown, and they turn out for all of the merchants and the vendors and the arts community that opens their doors to them for a full evening.
And I think if you're a local Missoulian and you think about the arts and how that really could be a center point for us, and then you start to think about all the development that's happening between the Merc and housing that's going up in the city limits or the old sawmill, and you realize that you have a town, right? You have a town square, if you will, that's going to be art, food, living, recreation. This is, there are very few cities that really can boast all of those
that's
elements.
what communities are going to. Suburbs in America are past their peak. Right? Suburbs are past their peak.
Right.
It's smaller towns that have a large, repertoire of activities and venues and cities.
Which is amazing.
We're building, a downtown and a surrounding of the downtown that's very attractive. Again, going back to what Nick Chakotay said, who's on the show, they're drawing people here for music events that stay for the weekend or overnight from Boise, from Portland, from Spokane, Seattle, Billings. It's like almost a 500-mile circle that people who want to come to Missoula as a destination venue.
And it's still not easy to get here.
No, it's not easy to get. Although it was just announced a little while back, we're getting another nonstop flight on a more regular basis on United into Los Angeles. So that'll be good.
That's the summer months, though, right?
Yeah, for now, and they'll see how it goes.
Right. So and we're trying to add the flight into Dallas, and there's just a lot of development going on.
We have 12 cities that we have nonstop flights to now.
Is that right?
Which is pretty good for the town like in Montana.
And if you want to look back on the What Do You Know archives, you could hear Chris Jensen talk all about that.
Sure, absolutely. So we have Tom Benson today, and I'm looking forward to talk to him about what's happening now and what's going to be happening in the future in the arts world in Montana, specifically Missoula.
Absolutely. So Tom Benson's our guest, Executive Director, Arts Missoula. This is What Do You Know, proudly supported and sponsored by Dawn Maddox and Engel & Volker's Luxury Real Estate. Back after this with Tom Benson. All righty, we are back with Tom Benson.
Tom, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
So give us right off the top, what is Arts Missoula? Give me the pitch.
We're a nonprofit organization that is the arts agency for the city and county of Missoula, the local arts agency.
And how do you fit in with? There are other arts-related agencies in town.
Oh, yeah.
Are you the master agency over all this, or are you on par with some of the others, or how does it all fit?
Well, our mission is to connect art and culture and the community through three things: education, advocacy, and celebration. So what we're doing is we're supposed to be supporting other artists and other art organizations and other cultural activities. We serve as a resource. So it's not a hierarchy.
Right.
And we work with the other arts organizations, and we work with artists and the schools.
And are you mostly publicly funded, or?
It's a little of everything.
Okay.
It's
like every other not-for-profit, right? You got to patch it all together somehow.
Right. We do get funding from the city, and we do also get funding from sponsors and supporters, individual supporters as a nonprofit. It's a great tax deduction. You're looking for one of those at the end of the year. That kind of a thing. And we also we produce a few events, so we get some revenue.
You do what, First Friday?
Well, First Friday is something we organize with the information around it. We don't organize because First Friday it's truly an organic event. It begins as an arrangement between an artist and a gallery. That has nothing to do with us. And enough of those happen, and then all of a sudden you end up with musicians playing on the
You have an event. You have an event.
It's a happening, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And no one's really in charge. So what we do is
that happens to be a good thing.
Oh, that's
in
a great
case.
thing. That's a great
I love
thing.
about Missoula.
Yeah, nobody's in charge, and
Who's
it's
in
organic,
charge?
and it's happening.
You can't get permission.
So what we try to do is promote it in any way we can, and sort of gather all the information on our website so that if people want to know what's going on First Friday, they can find it.
Right, on your place. Right? And I've gone to your website. It's a great website.
Oh, thank you.
So you've been there since 2004 at the Arts.
Well, no, prior, right? You were.
Well, yes. 2004 is when I went to. It was then called the Missoula Cultural Council. I became the director. Prior to that, I was director of First Night Missoula, which was its own organization.
Right.
And then when I moved over to what was then the Cultural Council, First Night sort of followed me. It wasn't my intention, but it followed
you. Right.
Let me ask you a question, Tom. Is art something that's kind of in your blood? Is this something that you've always been involved in? Because you were a teacher, right? Prior to.
Right.
Well, talk a little bit about it.
Well,
how did you get to this point?
A lot of left-hand turns.
The long and winding road, right?
Waiting at the light for that left-hand turn.
Are you in the middle of the intersection?
Yeah, right. So no, you're right. I was a history major. And people they say, well, what does that teach you to do? Well, it teaches you to do whatever you want.
Right, sure.
And I was a history teacher for a while. But I've been a singer in various choirs and groups, and I performed in the original First Night in Missoula in a choir, as well as a small a cappella group, and just fell in love with it, and stayed in touch with the people who were then organizing it, and eventually, a couple of years later, I was asked to be on the planning committee, and then I was looking for a job when they needed a director, and took over that, and that's sort of how I
obviously
fell
did
into
a good
it.
job.
Fell into it, but it's an interest in art. I also took art history classes in college.
Right,
I loved it. I was never an artist myself, but between the appreciation of art that way and singing and performing on the side.
So let me ask you this, just because you talk about art history and art, I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
$450 million for a Da Vinci. What was your reaction to that when you heard that?
That wasn't me who bought it.
No, I know.
Okay.
we have no. Do we know who bought it yet?
I didn't see who bought it.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
It was
either.
a Russian oligarch who sold it.
Yes. That we know.
Yeah.
And we know it sold in 1958 for a $10,000.
Right.
Oh no, excuse me, $100, and then the person who just sold it bought it for $10,000.
Right.
But what was your reaction to a piece of art going for $450 million?
A lot of money. It's a lot.
It's huge. I mean, that's crazy.
All
$500
roads
million.
lead to George Papadopoulos. Okay.
No.
But you know the basis of capitalist economics is if somebody's going to pay for it, then it's worth it.
Well, and we hope that maybe that person will put it in a museum or give it to bequeath it to a museum, which would be great.
Which would be nice.
Instead of having it in a private collection.
Do you feel like Missoula has its more than its fair share of art and art related supporters and creators and organizations? Because
yes.
Yeah,
I think
it's a leading question, but isn't it incredible what we have here?
It is. What Missoula's got is a great energy for an acceptance of new artistic ideas. If you've come to Missoula and you've got this funky thing you want to do,
right?
There's going to be an audience for it, and people are going to give you the benefit of the doubt for a while and allow you to get good at what you're doing. And so we have a lot of really good creative energy in this town, and it's also about the community. And I mean, I know that's kind of a cliche thing, but people choose to live here because they like living here.
Not only is there heritage, there's sort of it's educating from a younger age. You have the Spark program. Why don't you tell our listeners about the Spark program?
Yeah, that is actually a Kennedy Center initiative. The Kennedy Center calls it Any Given Child, and it's all about access and equity in arts education. And the whole idea is that over the years, as school districts all over the country have been cutting back, very often they cut out art programs. And at the same time, ironically, the economic pundits are saying what we need to produce, we need to produce an educated class, a creative class, because that's what employers are looking for more than anything else is creativity. Well, how do you teach creativity? How about art?
Right.
And so the Kennedy Center's idea is rather than give everybody a big check, help these communities figure out how they can improve in their art education. So what they did was they chose. We were at the time one of I think 12 or 14 cities. Now I think there's up to 20 in the country that the Kennedy Center is sponsoring, and they give their expertise and they come in to assist a community in getting the program going.
And it's really important. I remember I'm a product of the New York City public school system,
right.
And two of the things that I remember the most about my public school education was, one, they gave us and made us read the New York Times every day.
Wow, that's great.
And that was, and I didn't really love the New York Times in those days. It didn't have pictures. It was all black and white, but I got to make it part of, it became part of my life. Right. Secondly, they took us every year to Connecticut and we saw live Shakespeare performances. Wow. Great. At Stratford on Avon. Yeah.
Right.
And it was fantastic. I mean, I didn't, at 12 years old, 13 years old, I didn't really understand Hamlet or Macbeth, intellectually, but viscerally, it was an amazing experience. And I continue to, gravitate towards that because of the experience I had in public school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a key kind of education to provide to young people.
Right? Absolutely, and you must be proud, Tom, because some of your first nighters have gone on to some amazing things. Maris,
yeah.
Let's talk about Maris. Even though we're taping this show, a couple of weeks back, Maris was on American Idol.
That's right.
Right, and do you remember when Maris came through the?
She was as a freshman. She entered our spotlight competition and won. And I can remember seeing her audition and thinking, "Wow, she's quite something." And then I saw the finals, and it was.
And she has a new album coming. I mean, she's 18. She's 18 years old, and she's really come from a small town and doing big things.
Right. So to see that she made the finals in American Idol is really wonderful.
You've got great the talent in this town. I think is something to behold. I mean, it's not like there are people here that are professional quality performers, musicians. You got Eden Atwood.
Arts stand out here, and a lot of it has to do with things like the Missoula Children's Theater, for example,
right,
which gets you into the theater at a young age,
right?
Yep.
And that's all those pieces fit together, and the whole is stronger. And bigger than the sum of the parts here because of all of the galleries and the all first night and the book festival and the Roxy Theater doing the film festivals and all of these other and I want to switch just slightly, but we talked earlier, the economic impact of this is really important to the community.
Yes. Oh yes, absolutely, and it's important in a lot of ways. Just before we get there, you mentioned the Missoula Children's Theater.
Yeah.
70% of their work occurs somewhere else.
Yes,
we think of MCT as putting on these plays,
right?
But 70% are the little red trucks driving around the country and all over the world, and it says the word Missoula on the truck, and
right?
So that's one of the best advertisements for this.
Well, it's arts missionary work, right? We're out there in our red trucks with Missoula, bringing people into the arts around the world.
So they're exporting art. In
Yes.
the same way that, say, the Montana Repertory Theater is also exporting art. Rocky Mountain
Ballet exports art.
Yeah, right.
Which is incredible that it's coming from town.
Well, you don't think of it like that. You don't think of it as an economic engine in a way, but it is. And how much does it generate in the community in terms of economic impact?
The nonprofit arts industry generates $54 million a year, according to the latest study that just came out this year.
And that's a lot in a town this size.
Oh, it is. It's quite a lot, and in fact, it's about 3 times the amount of towns our size in the country.
Is that right?
The average for towns are in the 50 to 100,000 population range is about 19 million.
So it really does have an inordinate influence in this town.
Yeah.
Our guest is Tom Benson, the executive director of Arts Missoula, and you can learn more about Arts Missoula at artsmissoula.org. Arnie.
Is part of this driven by the fact that we have a university here, that it's a liberal arts university,
Absolutely.
and produces people in the entertainment management and theater and all the areas we're talking about?
Right. The history of Missoula and the history of as you mentioned, the liberal arts university right here in town, and the College of Visual and Performing Arts, really strong college. You mentioned Spark a little while ago. The whole idea of the Spark in the Kennedy Center was to work with schools, but at the university, at the College of Visual and Performing Arts, they have a program called the Creative Pulse, which is a graduate program in arts integration, the very thing that Spark is doing in the schools. So not only are we working with the schools, but we have a training ground right here in Missoula, so we can bring in people from around the region to learn what we're doing in the school.
We also have the broadcast center on campus. Right. So it's not every university that has the public radio and public TV all coming out of the the university community in a town our size.
Yeah.
So I mean that's always important to add to the mix.
What would we feel like we have a lot of elements that are all working for us here. What are the things that you would like that you don't have, that we, from an arts perspective?
Something we need?
What do we need here?
Well,
Don't be shy.
It would be wonderful to have the big performing arts center.
The venue.
The big venue. It's a hard, economically hard numbers to crunch.
Right. Well, we have what's the biggest venue we have for performing arts? 1,500?
Indoor. Well,
the Adams Center.
Well, the Adams Center at about 5,000.
Yeah, 55,600.
And then probably the Denison Theater after that.
Well, the Wilma.
And they're both at about the Denison Theater is about 1,100, and the Wilma's a little less than that now.
No, Wilma's 15 or 14.
Okay.
Yeah, Wilma, I think he expanded it.
There's a difference between if there's seats or no seats.
Yeah, it's only about 800 if it's seated.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, but the performing arts centers of the kind that you see in other cities that are around somewhere between 1,800 and 20.
We need an Alice Tully Hall.
Yeah.
We need.
We're not going to have Lincoln Center here, so just forget about it.
Well, pretty well.
But you could support, given the amount of tickets that are sold here for live performances of one kind or another, 1,800 to 2,200 makes some sense.
Well, and it also might help bring in others.
Sure, with the Fox Theater project, that's going to have conference space, so 80,000 square feet or so of conference space and a new hotel. There is going to be more critical mass and more events happening here and more conventions coming to town, and then a performing arts center feels like it fits into that kind of environment.
Where would you put one?
Well, I mean,
you'd anchor it near town.
Well, the question really is not only I think for a lot of people is that the kind of town Missoula wants to become? I mean, the people that are resistant to growth and change already.
Right.
And if you start making it, even more of an attraction, then more people are going to move here than the steady pace we've had.
Well, more people are going to visit here, and that we know has an economic impact.
Right. Well, the visitors are
for small businesses.
I'm speaking from a contrarian point of view.
No, I know.
They become people that say, well, let's move there. That's a great town. And then pretty soon, you've lost some of the individual characteristics that make Missoula the quirky, interesting river arts town that it is.
Well, you've been here since 1986. Okay,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
So I did my research.
Yeah.
Well, your website's pretty.
Have you looked at his prison record? Or
I have
we just
not.
Okay.
But Tom, tell me. I mean, in the last 30 years, how much? I mean, this place has changed.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It used to be a dead town on weekends.
Right.
And now every weekend
they're boarded up places now. I moved here in '97, and there was nothing on Reserve
everybody
Street.
went to the lake.
What was it like in
Everybody went to
'86 though? Like, what was it like in the winter of '80? When you were here, it was
much like it is now, but smaller.
Did they have hopes and aspirations to be more involved in the arts?
Yes. I mean, I wasn't involved in the foundation of Arts Missoula.
Sure.
That occurred in around that time in 91, 92. And if you look at the original documents, it's the language that they're using and the aspirations are very similar today.
So 25 years later,
right?
Are you happy with the way things are here?
Oh yeah. I mean, I am. And
it's easy to be critical. It's easy to always be critical, armchair quarterback. But in taking the 25-year perspective, we're in pretty good shape.
We are.
We have a pretty good place.
The potential is still there. You mentioned that there are those that don't like change, and one thing that change is inevitable, and you're either going to grow or you're going to disintegrate
or stagnate
or stagnate. And so the question is how are you going to approach that?
And also dismiss this thought process that appears in politics and arts, which is the good old days that never were.
Right.
I mean, I hear people wax on, with great nostalgia about a period of time, and then someone who was here at that period of time says to me, "I was here. That's not the town I remember."
Right. You mentioned I was a historian.
Right.
And I remember reading a book called "The Good Old Days." They were terrible. And one of the things that one of the statistics I remember was that in the 1890s in New York City, it was before automobiles, the pollution from horse manure was, it was a serious crisis.
Well, if you read the socioeconomic study that Gangs in New York, the movie was based on,
right.
You wouldn't want to be in New York City around the Civil War. It was disgusting.
And so when the automobile was invented, it was hailed as a solution to air pollution. Think of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. But, there is that, we talk, and it happens in politics too. People wax on about, the 50s, how great they were. They weren't that great, right? Or the 60s, or the Reagan era. Maybe you liked Ronald Reagan as a human being.
This is better.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now we're really, particularly for the arts, But I'm just saying there is this disconnect between dreaming about the past in through some kind of filter and the reality. And what we have here now is a very vibrant, town that has challenges like every town, but the good so far outweighs the bad.
Oh yeah.
And particularly in the area of the arts.
Yes.
Well, what's interesting also here is that you've got some astounding kind of landscape and scenery with which to kind of commingle the arts, right? So you go up to Snowbowl in the summer and you can see David Grisman playing, bluegrass,
right.
And that's kind of incredible. What a beautiful setting. Or you have the Kettle House Amphitheater nestled into the side of the mountain there along the Blackfoot, and that's pretty incredible.
Well, we have a multi-purpose venue. There are some towns that have, a Friday kind of First Friday where they do it all indoors because outdoors isn't very appealing.
Yeah.
We do it and bring the outdoors into all of the activities here because we live in a beautiful place.
Well, was it when Governor Bullock was at the opening of the Kettle House, he mentioned three things about Missoula, and that the Kettle House brought in. He says, great music, great local brews, beer,
right,
and the outdoors,
right.
So
he's right.
And actually, he said, performing arts, beer, and the outdoors, and that all kind of comes together. So you're right. I mean, the big reason why people live here and come here and visit here is because of the outdoors.
You know, that begs the question, actually, which is, and this is really maybe even a question for Nick at some point in a follow-up, but can the amphitheater actually serve as a venue for a 2-week run of, you know, a play or or some type of, I don't know, exhibition of some sort or expo
or a festival,
a
music
festival,
festival.
like because think about it. I mean, you know, he did 10 nights this past summer. I mean, have you had any conversations with him about that?
Not about that specifically, but
I wonder if others.
I'm sure that the possibility is there.
Right.
It's
about making the dates work.
Making the dates work. Right.
But the weather and the setting and the just, I mean, it just lends itself.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I think back to when I was growing up in New Jersey, we had the Garden States Art Center.
You had Asbury Park, and you went to see.
We had the Garden State Art Center in Homedale. Okay.
Yes.
And my parents used to take us there to see plays and different performing. You know, it wasn't just concerts.
Yeah, well, Washington D.C. has Wolf Trap, and you go outdoors and throw a blanket and have a picnic and watch. And there was enough economic. You could either have paid seats or you could lie there. I mean, there was at different economic levels so that average people could go there as well as people willing to pay $150 a ticket.
Arnie, when I was growing up in New Jersey, my parents used to take us, this is a good one, to the young people's concerts.
Oh, I remember those.
Leonard Bernstein started those in the late 60s, and Michael Tilson Thomas, the conductor, who's now the conductor of the San Francisco Symphony or the New World Symphony in Miami, he hosted those. And
you probably had no idea.
I had no idea how great it was. I was going to those with a gal, Rebecca Young, my neighbor, and one of our best friends. She ended up being going to Juilliard and being, I want to say, second chair violist for the Philharmonic. Still is. Okay, but we were going into they were schlepping us into the city,
and it was inspiring.
It was great. It helped me. Yeah, it was something that was so memorable that it definitely made me appreciate the arts.
Kept you out of the Crips and being a gang member.
Well, those New Jersey gangs. But but I think that's what we provide in Missoula, I would say, and submit to you, that having people exposed to art at an earlier age.
Absolutely.
That really sets them on the path of, either being a creator or just being an enjoyer of the arts.
Right. No.
Well, the challenge to me at this point, before we talk about the future, is that for young people and trying to bring them in and bring them along, all of the online interactive, social media outlets are competition to, sitting in a venue and, watching a live performance. And it would seem to me that there's got to be some kind of strategy to try to balance that out, because you know what happens with your 16-year-old compared to the way it used to be.
Yeah,
you can't,
games.
Well, you've said several times there'll be a game on TV, and he'll be playing a simulated game on a handheld unit, not even watch it on
frustrating
TV.
Right. I mean, I think you're right in that and around the country, a lot of performing arts have suffered because of that. But sort of to counter that, there's an aspect of art that's in the internet too, and
sure.
that kind of thing. I mean,
are you including that in your portfolio of activities?
Well, not that specifically, but say the Roxy Theater,
yes,
and their film academy, so you can actually learn how to make films and make videos,
which is what people are doing on YouTube every minute, practically.
And the whole creative industries is built around the internet, and so they're integrated. You
haven't met Jim Louderback yet. He's the new CEO of VidCon.
Oh yeah.
So VidCon's obviously based here. Talk about creators and art, and it's right here in Missoula, and we just wonder its tentacles are reaching internationally.
If the net neutrality issue is going to hurt those guys, if it actually gets fully implemented.
God, it's a frightening thought.
Yeah.
Well, anything that makes choices for the consumer before...
or eliminates the unfettered access to the internet that we've enjoyed for, 25 years or so.
Right.
Yeah, that's
if
gonna be a problem.
YouTube has to be paid for in order to get access to it, and if you don't have a internet provider that has a deal with YouTube, you won't get it.
Yeah. No,
which is frightening in a way.
Well, it's going to change the whole landscape.
In the arts community, you talk about advocacy.
Right.
It's one of the. Do you advocate on these kinds of issues and educate about these sorts of issues?
Well, we haven't about that, but
at some point you might.
At some point we might. Yeah.
Our guest is Tom Benson, Executive Director of Arts Missoula. And you could learn more about Arts Missoula at artsmissoula.org.
So talk a little bit about what we can look forward to. What are the things that might be coming along and down the pike that are exciting for our listeners?
Well, I think that just in terms of the growth of Missoula, you wander around downtown, you see all sorts of building going on, hotels. You mentioned the Fox
Theater Project, the old Sawmill District, all of the
Sawmill District, the old Merc, and all the rest of it. I think that that's just going to. And the fact that we, as you mentioned, these amphitheaters. We built 2 amphitheaters last summer.
Right.
Not 1, but 2. And so I think we're going to see continued growth in the entertainment industry.
Well, we also have, outside of our mall, we have the new dinner theater that's coming in.
That's right.
Which, have you been to one of those in another town? Have you participated? They're fabulous. It's going to be a big
I know
draw.
about them. I have.
Where's this?
By the mall.
A dinner theater?
Well, movie theater.
The new IMAX.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the new IMAX theater.
Right.
Yeah, wow.
Which can be used for live events.
Right. The food's good.
Yeah.
yeah. We always have to get back to the most important thing.
God, I mean,
the food.
wouldn't that be a terrible thing to have a dinner?
But it's going to be a very
good
large complex with theater seating and food, and
Right.
it's going to be a good venue to go to. And then from what I've seen in other parts of the country where they have the AMC run theaters like that, they are flexible to have live performances and
Really?
Oh yeah, you can do all sorts of things.
Went to a McMenamin's theater in Portland
Right.
recently, and I got pizza and salad and a couple of drinks and sat up in a nice cushy theater chairs with the tray in front of me. I said, this is a way to watch a movie.
Right. And they can do the the digital live performances that they have of
Right.
of
the Met, like the opera?
Met.
The Met, yeah.
And then you can use them, rent them out for other kinds of events. So that might be another
That might
venue
be
that's
something
available to do some live active performances.
I think. Well, look. So it's not just in the downtown district. It's everywhere in Missoula.
Yeah.
Between out by the airport where the whatever Big Sky Amphitheater is, to Southgate where we're talking about where the IMAX theater is going to be, to downtown,
To Bonner.
and to Bonner.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big.
What's next?
That's what I'm saying. What's next?
I can't
comment.
I
Crystal
can't
ball.
I can't tell you. But it's great to be in this period of healthy arts and growth for this town.
Well, one of the other things we were talking about before, which is helpful, because it's not just art for us. We like attracting people. Montana gets 11, 12 million visitors a year. And the fact that we have 12 cities where we have nonstop flights,
Right.
and some of the other towns that have an interest in arts and culture, like Portland or Boise or Spokane, or even Salt Lake City, are only 7-hour drive away. And in the summertime, when you're looking for a weekend getaway, Missoula becomes a good option, a legitimate option.
Right.
Tom, let me ask you a question. So how do you, let's say, participate relative to if let's say MCT wants to bring something into town, or they're thinking of they're rolling out their schedule? Do they bring you in and they say, hey, I just want you guys to be aware of here's what we're planning to do. Can you think of ways of promoting this or building an audience or getting the community behind it? What's the day-to-day like for you?
If there's a project that involves the whole community, not just say MCT,
I see.
then they'll bring us in, and really what we do is as I mentioned in our mission, connecting is the first word in our mission.
Right.
And that's kind of what we do. We connect the dots. If people they have an idea that involves a lot of organizations working together collaboratively on some issue.
Okay.
They'll bring us in to try to help with that.
Do people come to you looking for money and grants?
They do, and unfortunately, we are not a re-granting organization. And actually, the closest thing to that is the Montana Arts Council at a state level.
I see.
They have granting.
And do you work with other municipalities in the state as well? Like, are there meetings of other?
There are occasionally, yeah. There's meetings through the Arts Council or through the nonprofit organization.
You mentioned earlier at the beginning that you're the city and county kind of organization for this.
What's called a local arts agency.
Right, so you're the local arts
agency. Which is a designated agency that helps promote art and culture. Other than that, there's really no template for what an arts agency is.
Right.
In some towns, they maintain a venue. For instance, over in Bozeman, it's the Emerson Center. I mean, it's a center for the arts, and that's where their arts agency is located. And other organizations, like, they produce a lot of events. We don't need to produce a lot of events because there are a lot of events happening
that are
anyway.
Sure.
You don't have to gin that up. It's already going on.
We don't want to compete with.
But as the agency, how supportive and knowledgeable and committed are public officials here to your mission and the importance of the arts as an integral part of the economic fabric of Missoula?
Oh, they're well aware. I mean, I don't visit city council all that often, but often enough that they know who we are and what we do, and they're very supportive. And the same thing with the county commissioners. They know what we do
and the impact of it and how important it is,
absolutely.
And what would happen if we didn't have an arts community here, and how that would kind of devastate us. It'd be like a locust epidemic or whatever. If you pull $54 million out of our economy, the impact of that would be catastrophic.
We'd be. I'm trying to make a joke.
We'd be Dayton, Ohio.
Right. We'd be Dayton. Right. We'd be Akron. Our guest is Tom Benson, Executive Director of Arts Missoula. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have our final words with Tom Benson. Remember, you're listening to What Do You Know? Proudly supported by Engel and Volker's Luxury Real Estate and Don Maddox. Back after this. Okay, we are back.
So, Tom, I want to get back to talking about first night.
Sure, that's coming right up.
It's coming right up. And tell us about how it's organized and the venues and who is under the spotlight.
Sure.
What's the whole genesis?
So first night began in the mid 1970s in the city of Boston, and it was an idea of creating an event that brought the community together through the arts. So it's a community celebration of the art, and they chose New Year's Eve because New Year's Eve was a time that is sort of traditional, looking back and looking forward, that sort of thing. But it had become by the mid '70s, sort of a amateur night for a lot of people. Didn't want to go downtown.
Right.
They didn't want to. There's too many crazies going on down there. So the idea was to gather the community, a community building, a barn raising that's not actually raising a barn. It's building a festival with what do you have? And the city becomes the stage, and the actors are the participants of the community. And then in an interesting twist, because of the whole alcohol New Year's Eve thing, they said, why don't we just not serve alcohol? We don't want to make a statement about alcohol.
It's so un-Montanan.
We just won't serve alcohol. If you want alcohol, you can find it somewhere.
Right.
And that, by excluding alcohol, that actually people found it more inclusive. People said, "Oh, I'll go downtown.
I can bring my kids.
I can bring my kids." So that idea spread to a whole lot of cities, and it came to Missoula in the mid '90s. Started in Missoula, and by the year 2000, there were over 200 communities around the country and around the world that had this concept.
And how many people in Missoula show up for first night?
So there are right now, somewhere around 6,000, 6,500 that participate.
That's amazing.
It's around 2,000
of the population.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
Yeah, and so as I said, it was in Missoula from in '95. Since then, a lot of communities have fallen off There's not.
Ours has gotten bigger though,
and ours has pretty much stayed stable.
It has,
yeah. And there's a lot more competition now than there used to be. Because now we have the Wilma Theater and the Top Hat, and they have their own programming on New Year's Eve, and there's a lot of stuff going on.
Right.
So, but it's really a community-based festival.
And what venues are going to be participant this year? Like where can folks go?
Well, we do a lot at the University of Montana.
Okay.
At the University Center and the Denison Theater and the Recital Hall. We open up at Southgate Mall, which we've done every year with a children's hat parade. The mayor comes out and we have a little parade.
What day? And that's
on Sunday, December 31st.
That is on the 31st.
Falls on a Sunday this year.
Falls on a Sunday. And then we have a lot of venues downtown. We're going to have we're in the Elks Club this year. Both floors of the Elks Club, the Union Hall, the Public House.
You're in the Union Hall too?
Yeah.
I like that place.
And the Public House downtown.
Sure.
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head of some other venues downtown. And it takes place from noon until midnight.
Right.
And you talked about the artists that live in Missoula and the talent that we have in Missoula.
Right.
Really what First Night is it's a way to get the community to see a lot of that talent, which they may see through the year anyway, but they don't get to see them on one night. So We've never really gone for the big blockbuster name to come in. Because we want to keep it affordable. If we brought in one name, we couldn't have all these local artists perform.
That's right.
We want to have a lot of local artists perform. So we have about 80 events and activities going on.
80 events.
Downtown, all throughout downtown and at the university and at Southgate Mall.
Well, it's cool on a Sunday to do that anyway.
Right. And so what you do is you buy an admission button. And an admission button gets you into all of the events.
And how much is an admission button?
$15. Ahead of time, children
for all 80 events. All 80
events. The First Night Spotlight, which is the event that the high school competition, is an additional $2. Okay.
And what are the dates of the First Night Spotlight? What are the pre-events?
Well, their preliminary events.
Right. The preliminary events
begin the week of December 6th, and they're at the various high schools.
Okay.
And then the finalists will be at the Denison Theater on New Year's.
And a couple of folks that I work with here at Town Square are part of our judges.
Right.
Yeah, Christy Leffler's a judge.
Nice.
You know Christy. And
Billy's going to be the MC.
Yeah, and Billy Jenkins is the MC for First Night, and he loves it. He's been doing it for years, and it's one of those events, a great way to kick off the year.
Yeah.
Well, it's you talk about making it affordable. I mean, most New Year's Eves, you can, it's a heavy ticket to go to see one of the performances.
That's right.
And this is 80 things. You can either do them all if you're very energetic, or you can pick 10 or 15, and it's like $1. It's $1 an event.
Right.
Yeah, not bad.
I mean, that's pretty amazing.
And where can they get tickets?
So we sell buttons at there are about 20 different locations around town and in the Bitterroot.
Okay.
A lot of grocery stores, a lot of retail outlets. Rockin' Rudy's sells them. Warden's Market. All the Albertson stores, the Good Food Store, places like that.
Excellent.
And as well as places in the Bitterroot as well.
And what website can they go to for more?
They go to artsmissoula.org.
Right.
There is a First Night page, and that sort of says where you can get your buttons. You can actually buy them online, too. If somebody calls me up at the office and says, where can I get a button? My next question is, well, where do you do your grocery shop? We'll probably buy a button there. So.
Well, it's great. It's great that even the venues that are not part of it are participating by being a venue to buy your buttons.
Oh, yeah.
Like grocery stores.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of the community building part of it. Mm-hmm. Grocery stores are helping us out. The venues are helping us out. And one thing that people don't understand is that we want to pay our artists, too. So
right.
But people say, why does it, there's so many free events going on. Why do we have to pay for this? Well, we're paying the artists. We're paying the people who live here so that they can entertain you. Because without them, we wouldn't have this. So
yeah, that's
the price of a movie ticket and popcorn.
Yeah, and
you get 80 events.
Right,
80 events on the last night of the year.
That's right.
Right.
Okay. First Night
brought
Missoula.
to you by Arts Missoula.
Brought to you by Arts Missoula. Tom, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much.
This has been great.
Appreciate it.
Continue the good work.
All right,
Continue the good work, and we'll see you back here at the studio because you're going to be doing a bunch of interviews on Kiss and Zoo and The Blaze. Anyway, Arnie, have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
Talk to you next week, Scott.
Okay, see you next week. Thank you for listening to What Do You Know?
I can't wait for the next show, Scott.
I'm excited too, Arnie. If you'd like to suggest a guest, send me an email at scottrichmond@townsquaremedia.com. We'll see you next week. And thanks for listening to Newstalk KGVO.